Today we're going to show you how to assemble and install a Concept One black AQP power steering hose kit. Maybe you've done an LS swap and it has a GM Type 2 pump. Or maybe you're doing a serpentine drive conversion on your classic Chevy or Ford V8. There are so many different possible power steering component combinations. You could have a steering box with a remote reservoir or a steering rack with an integral reservoir. Either way, Concept One has a hose kit that'll work with your combination. This 68 Camaro has an aftermarket subframe with a Ford Fox Body Mustang style power steering rack. We've installed Concept One's new Victory HD 8-rib Serpentine drive kit, which features a GM Type 2 power steering pump and a remote reservoir. The Dash 6 and Dash 10 AQP hose included in the kit features a high-pressure rubber inner core, a braided steel layer, and a black abrasion-resistant cloth covering. Steel Dash 6 and Dash 10 AN hose ends are included, as are the correct adapter fittings for your steering gear. We've already installed the Victory HD 8-rib accessory drive system. It's always a good idea to install all of the hard components before cutting and assembling any hoses. Find a suitable mounting location for the remote reservoir, where the Dash 10 feed line at the bottom of the reservoir will be higher than the power steering pump. With the remote reservoir mounted, we can now mock up all of our hose ends and adapter fittings for the power steering pump, rack, as well as the remote reservoir. For this install, we substituted straight hose ends at the steering rack in place of the standard 90-degree hose ends. We can do the same for you, just ask. Before measuring for hoses, adjust the orientation of your hose ends for best routing. We'll start by measuring the Dash 10 feed line that runs between the bottom of the remote reservoir and the power steering pump itself. We're factoring in the bend of the hose and allowing a little extra length or movement of the engine. There are many different ways to cut braided steel hose. Some folks still use a hacksaw. We like this Ryobi 14-inch metal cutoff machine. We've cut a lot of hose with this tool. After cutting, be sure to blow all hoses out to clear any debris. For assembly, twist the sleeve onto the hose in the reverse direction until it is fully seated. Next, lubricate the nipple. We like to use grease, or you can use power steering fluid. Start threading the hose end together by hand. Get it as far as it'll go before clamping the entire assembly in a vise. If you've ever assembled traditional aluminum AN fittings and braided steel hose, you'll find that these steel fittings with cloth-covered AQP hose is much easier to assemble. Tighten the hose end until there is a 1/16 of an inch gap between the hose end and the sleeve. This will allow you to fine-tune the orientation of the hose end during final installation. Next, we'll work on clocking the hose end that's on the other end of this line. With the assemble end attached to the reservoir and the remaining hose end mocked up at the steering pump, we will go ahead and mark the orientation of the hose end and the hose for final assembly. The assembly process is the same as just described. Twist the sleeve onto the hose, grease up the nipple for the hose end, thread the hose end into the hose by hand as far as you can, clamp it in a vise, and tighten the assembly until the mark on the sleeve matches the mark on the hose end for proper orientation. Before installing the completed assembly on the car, flush the inside out with some brake clean as well as compressed air to remove any debris. You want to do everything possible to ensure that trash does not find its way into your power steering pump. 1 hose down, 2 to go. In addition to the Dash 10 feed line that we just built, there are 2 Dash 6 hoses to assemble. We'll speed up the footage here since the process is identical to what we just showed you. After you measure the hose, tape the area to be cut with some electrical tape. Another tip, if you don't have one of these metal cutoff machines, you might want to try long handle, curved jaw utility cutters. If you're assembling a hose with a straight fitting on one end, you don't have to worry about clocking the assembly. And the most important tip, clean your hose out twice. Clean it once after cutting but before assembly, and then clean it again after assembly. If debris finds its way into your power steering pump, this small piston will hang up, resulting in a loss of pressure. Since this is a remote reservoir installation, we're building 2 Dash 6 lines. One runs from the pressure side of the pump to the steering rack, and the other runs from the steering rack to the return side of the remote reservoir. With all of the power steering lines installed and tightened, fill the system with a high-quality power steering fluid. Concept One's remote reservoir has a fill line scribed about 3/4 of an inch below the threads inside of the reservoir. If possible, try to let your power steering system gravity bleed overnight, which is good for us because it's quitting time. With the system topped off, it's time to start the formal bleeding process. Concept One developed a comprehensive 10-step process to help you bleed your power steering system correctly. First, you'll bleed the system with the engine off, then you'll finish the procedure with the engine running. That's the whole process. The steps you've seen here apply to all of our black AQP hose kits. If you need help choosing the right hose kit for your combination of steering gear and reservoir, feel free to give us a call or check out c1pulleys.com. Thanks for watching.